Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hobby Hotline, episode number 63. Today we have Chris from Stale Gum and
How
Uncle
you
Rich
doing?
Klein. And I'm your pal Val from NASCAR Radio. How you gentlemen doing? How's all the viewers doing? Hope everybody's doing great this week or had a great week. Gotta bear with me here. I'm trying to run the board. Here we go.
Here we
Again, this is Hobby Hotline, the Hobby's only live call-in show. Let me get the link here.
I have a feeling that we're going to need some callers this week, so that link is going to be very important.
Well, I'll lead off by, if you notice behind me, there's something missing.
Yeah, wall. I can see a wall.
Yes, you can see wall for the
no
first
more
time.
Cardboard boxes.
I know they're all on their way to Boston, the Boston area.
That's a long trek.
It's a very long trek. May they move safely. Of course, it's snowing right now in the Boston area, so hopefully they stay dry while they're at it.
Wow.
But,
well, let's see.
One of the people who used to set up occasionally at my show, donated us a lot of nice prizes over the years, has moved there and decided he wanted to do more card stuff. So I gave him a good price. The movers came Thursday, and the contents of the office are gone. I still have a storage unit that has to be dealt with, or we can start running shows again, hopefully at some point for the synagogue. But right now, I have a clean office. I'm not used to this. I need cards.
I got a question for you. So on the storage unit, is it a climate control or is it one that's outside?
Yeah, in Texas, they're all climate controlled, folks.
Okay.
I mean, they know better. I mean, you do not have a storage unit in Texas unless you own it yourself that's not climate controlled. Just for that, it gets a little too hot for about 3 months a year. And otherwise, all your 91 Stadium Club and all your 92 Ultra and all the early UV coated, will melt into each other. And then you need to put them in the deep freezer so you can undo them. And that does work, by the way, usually.
I was going to ask you about that. That's one of the reasons I was asking about, if you have a storage unit or the stuff from the junk wax era that people just put in storage outside and now they're bricked. But want to give a shout out to Cardman Dan. He said he's going to his first card show tomorrow in over a year from outside Chicago.
And also, if you notice, Bo is posting from the Madison Card Show. I don't know if they have a widescreen TV like our friend does in his store that they can post our mugs on the photo, but I hope he's going to have a great day at the Madison Card Show.
Definitely. And I guess on that mode, we got about a month until the Dow show.
Right. 5 weeks, May 20th to 23rd at the Waters Creek Convention Center up in Allen. Literally walking distance from this office. So if you want literally the 1 second tour of the office, since the boxes are gone instead of the 3 second tour, you're happy to walk the few hundred feet down to the office or drive the few hundred feet. If you're coming in town, and I know most of the Hobby Hotline is coming in town, there's some that live locally, and you're coming in, Val. I know Drew is coming in. John Newman is coming in. Chris has last been in Dallas a year ago, February, so I don't expect. So unless there's an MLS game, I don't think we're going to see him.
That is the same weekend of the rescheduled Chantilly show. So
okay, so you'll stay.
I will be there. So all the East Coast peeps, come on down to Washington that weekend.
And if you're in the rest of the country, come fly to Dallas. It's an American hub. It's easy enough to get to. Allen has, and we have tons of good restaurants that you can, in this shopping center, you can actually walk to from the show. I mean, you don't, as long as you can get to the hotel, you don't even really need a car for your trip. In this shopping center that I'm in, the Waters Creek, we have a Brio's Italian, we have a Cheesecake Factory, we have a P.F. Chang's, we have what they call the Village Burger Bar, which is really good burgers. There's a couple pub-like elements. There's a snappy salads. I'm missing a couple, but that gives you an idea that you will not be starving for food where you can walk to it. I mean, it's a lot easier than the Cleveland National, depending where you're staying.
I was just thinking the same thing. Everybody in line for the hot dogs or whatever at the show. So,
oh, I forgot. Since Brad is there, he likes Mi Cocina. We also have Mi Cocina, which is a very good Mexican restaurant. So, and Brad, you've done the walk before, and you'll do it again. We'll leave it at that, Mr. Berthune.
And if you're coming to Chantilly next month, you have more than your fair share of fast food restaurants. There's about 6 or 7 of them within walking distance. They're all there. That's what we got.
It's going to be Chantilly versus the Dow show.
Well, we have better food. And then if you like, I noticed somebody pointed about chain food. Well, I will take you to the best local Italian places and Mexican and Tex-Mex places I know in this area. There are some really good things. So yeah, it's not all chains. Yes, I mentioned chains because that's what we have in the shopping center, but we have local places too I can go to. And let's not forget all the good barbecue right nearby.
I was going to say the barbecue's here in the South, but
we got Texas barbecue. It's better.
I don't know. Anyway, let's see. We're streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So if you have a comment or something you want to ask the guys, please go right ahead. And or if you want to come on the show, we have the link. Actually, I need to put the link in the chat here. Let me do that real quick. But it's on the screen as well.
Well, now that you have the culinary things, let's start with let's go to the one big news of the week, which was Topps announcing their first NFTs. And I'm just curious what you all thought about them.
That, yeah, I guess that's the elephant in the room. There's a couple of levels on that. One is that Topps is going public. Used to be private, went public, went private again. I think Eisner and his group has had it for I don't know how many years, and now they're going public again. So I think that's big, as well as now dipping into the NFT market. And with their first, I guess they did some of the Garbage Pail Kids, but they just announced on the 20th that they were selling 2 packs. One, let me have it up on the screen. I tried to share, but I had trouble. Standard pack, pre-minted 6 cards, $5, and there's 50,000 packs. Premium packs, pre-minted 45 cards, $100, 24,090 packs. There's all kinds of, I guess, goodies and rares and stuff like that in there. So, who's interested in that, and what do you guys think?
Well, what I found it interesting was that their biggest, one of the big competitors, the people who do Top Shot or whatever, the NBA, just went and savaged what they were trying to do. It's like, okay, nothing better than your competition telling you your product is bad. Having said that, Chris would probably appreciate this reference, and I was thinking about this while I was driving here today, that no matter what happens, we usually end up going back to the physical cards. Do you remember Upper Deck Power Deck of the late 90s?
And Panini HRX.
Right, we had really good computers at Beckett in those days, and I remember we tried to play that stuff so we could see it, and it never played really well. And we could never really get the Power Deck cards to do anything more than be cards, and so there have been talking records that look like cards. There have been so many things over the years, and yet when it all comes down to it, so far we've always had and always go back to the cards, which I find fascinating, that no matter what happens, it's always the tangible card. There may be a day where we don't have the tangible cards, but look how many younger people are walking around the shows today. And yes, they may be treating it as commodities, they may be treating it differently, but they're still handling physical cards. And that's something that I think it's just one of these things that just survives like the Energizer Buddy. It just keeps going and going and going and going.
So we got a caller here.
Hey.
Drew, you there? The DH.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, Drew.
Hey,
What's going on? So, I heard your NFT talk, so I figured I'd call in about that for just a minute. Because,
Please.
well, with Topps going into the NFT market, I really like what they're doing. They did the Undertaker NFT for WrestleMania. That was a little expensive, but what they did with it and what they included with it was a ton of actual tangible things that people also got in addition to it, as well as an experience that they could get. And as Topps enters into this field, the biggest problem that they're going to have is the people that just have no desire to learn about what an NFT is and just say, okay, it's a video clip and I don't want it, or it's a digital card and I don't want it. If Topps can provide some type of tangible asset attached to them, something that the consumer and the people that are on the fence, or the people that just refuse to even consider an NFT, if they can provide things that are tangible, that are something in addition to the NFT, I think that's where Topps and any of these companies, as they branch into this, if they want it to be successful, that they're going to have to add something additional to it, like they did with the Undertaker NFT, which included everything all the way up to backstage stuff at WrestleMania. So I think if you're looking at like a success and how Topps this NFT is going to do, the first ones are going to do great. People are all going to jump into it like crazy because it's new. But if you want to get that other side of the hobby and actually grow your market share instead of having a market completely die like you're seeing with Top Shot, you're going to have to add something physical or something that people consider an inherent value outside of an NFT that they may not fully understand.
I think what you're trying to say, Drew, is that they need to add something fungible to the non-fungible token.
Yes. And that's what a lot of people, well, no, it's what a lot of people are doing. There's a lot of NFTs that are coming out that you get the NFT, but then they're very expensive, but they're coming along with whether it be meet and greets, whether it be Zoom calls, whether it be like trips and days out with certain people. You know, a lot of these NFTs are adding additional things to it, but I think to get people to jump in on it that are just fully against it, you're going to have to add a tangible, a fungible, something that is going to pull those other people in. Now, you might not have to offer it forever, but if not, then all this top stuff you're going to see just like Top Shot. It's gonna balloon for a little while. Then all the money is going to be made only in packs. The marketplace is going to die, and that's what's going to happen. But anyway, guys, just wanted to call in, say what's up. Got to go coach the little one in baseball and soccer today. So have a good show, but just wanted to give my 2 cents on that one. So.
All right. Tell Jude good luck.
All right.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye.
Later.
I think what Drew did was basically just agree with what I said in a different roundabout way, in that at some point you're going to have a card that goes with that maybe you create something new that matches your NFT from the card. You make a real card of it.
And that's kind of what I think Panini did before pre-COVID when they were doing the blockchain stuff. But
yeah, that's the blockchain where you get the physical card and the blockchain. So,
but I think, you know, because of the card market and some of the older collectors, Topps is going to have to help educate the collector or have a lot of information about, this market, this wax platform. And then Ron was reading my mind. He's saying that he can see digital displays for NFTs in the future, like digital picture frames. Maybe.
Well, that's Panini. That was Panini HRX 10 years ago.
Right. But I guess, Panini didn't have the platform or the back end to pull off some of the stuff. And also, what's the right word? If you own the card or Yeah, I mean, yeah, well, that's true. Technology, and then also widely available or widely acceptable NFTs. We wouldn't have talked about NFTs, a year ago or 6 months ago, maybe. I know with Top Shots, um, that's been the biggest thing that I've seen on Twitter, where folks. The only thing I saw negative about that was that people were trapped on the platform, and couldn't get the money out or whatever, or they were slowly letting folks cash out. But uh, I have to give it to Tops though. Tops is one of those industry leaders. The Tops now comes to mind. They were kind of the first one to do that. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see how Tops and the corporation can handle or push this out or not.
But Tops Now is still a card. Panini Instant
Yeah.
is still a card.
Correct, but I'm saying that as an innovator.
Right. Well, you're always looking to innovate. And again, if this is a way to get new people in, I'm okay with it. The end, I'm still convinced that the end stores are going to have some importance in the future. The Walmarts and the Targets and the Myers and all those are going to have some importance in the future. But I am also convinced that direct to consumer, which this is the ultimate end game for the companies. I mean, there was Brad posted this article from Michael Eisner where he says we want to not just be the first sale, but the second and the third sale as well. In other words, they want to be the ones basically doing everything, and that basically means selling direct to consumer. And I mean, I wonder if we're going to have top stores where they're going to sell stuff like this, in conjunction with maybe the MLB store in New York or other places like that.
Well, that's kind of how Top Shot operates. I mean, if you want to sell one of your NFTs on Top Shot, you can only sell it on their platform, and then both Dapper, the company that makes Top Shot, and the NBA both get a cut. And that model would work in an NFT world, but in a physical card world, I'm not sure that if you open up a pack of 2021 Topps and you want to sell your cards, there's no way you could possibly, that Topps could create an ecosystem where you can only sell those cards there, right?
So it'd be like if they had eBay and you had to move it. But I went onto the Wax platform and looked at the developer guide. That the owner or the creator of it gets a percentage forever every time it changes hands.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, Chris, is like, so Topps can create this year's cards, and then every time they sell, they get a tiny piece forever. That's what I was saying about, is the stock them going.
But you can't do that with a physical card, though.
Correct.
You can only do that with a virtual card.
Right. Well, now when they create a box of cards and they sell it to distributor, whatever the distributor charges for it, they never see that. They get that initial thing. So I think this gives them more control, and then on the tail also to have a revenue stream. So I'm not saying, I don't know if it's good or not for collectors or not, but it's definitely good for Topps if it pans out.
Well, considering the value of Topps, and Michael Eisner is no dummy. So if they see a market there, if they've done some due diligence and see a market there, why not take advantage of a new marketplace? There's no guarantee it's going to work, but in business you have to try new things. Like if you want to go somewhere in a ride and you don't have a car, 10 years ago you had to wait for a cab, or you had to call a cab company or hope a friend could take you. Now with a smartphone, all you have to do is look at Uber and go, oh, Uber can get me there, or Lyft can get me there. So they're a disruptor, and this is in a sense a disruptor to the traditional card industry. And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm in favor of, as an innovator, if you're an innovator, you want to see new things. Nothing stays static forever.
I would disagree with that point, because it's not a disruptor to the traditional card industry. It's not the traditional card industry. It's something different.
I
The
see this
reason
as
I'll say
going
it's
at,
a disruptor, it's still money that might be going to physical cards that's now going to NFTs, unless you think that every person buying an NFT would not have ever bought a card.
No.
I mean, that is the financial distinction you have to make.
yeah, I think it's a cross between traditional and like e-pack, but they're controlling, on the platform. So it's definitely be interesting. And I don't know about long term. Rex, hey Rex, he says, I agree, guys. I'm not sure how well that will be received by collectors long term. That's definitely not how the current secondary card market works.
Rex, you usually have this up in your store. What are your collectors thinking about this?
Yeah, I'd love to know. That's what people, folks in the
Give
chat,
us a
let us know.
call.
Yeah, or give us a
Rex.
call.
Plug that into your web browser.
Yeah, give us a call and
by the way, I
you a
know
pack
it's
of
not
cards.
necessarily for this call, but don't we have a prize coming up at some point?
I believe so.
I think it's the Chelios jersey, and I think it has to do with the Dallas event. But we'll post more about that as the time comes. But I believe it's a Chris Chelios jersey that we'll be doing as a giveaway fairly soon. But it is an interesting topic, and it's interesting because we're talking about something non-fungible that you don't hold. Speaking about stuff you don't hold, if you notice, ESPN just ran, I'll call it a cursory article about the backlog at the grading companies this week, which I was very surprised to see, and want to hear all of your opinions about. I know this is almost like beating a dead horse, but it's certainly interesting with what's been going on at the grading companies, and what ESPN's take on it was interesting too. So, Val's, Chris, go ahead.
So I started reading that article that we had talked about, whatever. But so I thought that that PSA was still open for some of the higher levels.
They are. It's about
Okay.
2 to 3% of the cards submitted to them are still accepted. It's the super highest grading level they accept. Let's call it, I don't know the number, but let's say $200 for a card.
Yeah, and it was an interesting article. It was takeoff, and I think this is the one, Rich, is that they were talking to one of the gentlemen who submits quite a bit of cards to PSA, and he's more of a middleman. And one of the things that stuck out for me from the article was that so if you were a high-end card collector and you didn't want to go through sending it to PSA, you would go through this gentleman here, and it looked like he had like a 96 or 97% rate of guessing what PSA would grade that card. So people would send to him not only for him to send it in, but also to get his opinion on if it should be graded. Because I know we all talk about not everything needs to be graded. So it was definitely interesting. And then when PSA stopped the bulk stuff, his phone blew up pretty much at his daughter's softball game, and trying to talk to his customer. So,
well, I know there's also a gentleman down here by the name of Nate Nichols, and he has a thing called Grade These Cards, and he does the same thing. He'll pre-grade in a sense. I don't want to say he ever uses accurate, but he'll do the same thing. He'll look and say, you send this in, don't send this in. And to me, that's the best advice you can get. I don't know if anybody's 95, 96% accurate, but I will tell you that there's certain common sense things people will tell you about grading. But I'll also tell you that, like, for example, and I'll use a personal collection thing. I collect people who went to my college, which is Columbia. And let's say I want to get my Gene Larkin cards graded. It's a waste of money. But that would be a personal choice to get the Gene Larkins or the Frank Semineros or the Fernando Perez cards graded. George Stark, who was one of the hogs for Washington in the 80s. It's financially, it's throwing good money after bad. But if I want to super protect my cards, put them in a Beckett holders, as good as a thing as anything I can do for them, as sturdy as those holders are.
Is
Sorry.
there a service where you can just get the card slab, not graded?
There are I think there have been in the past such services.
Yeah, I think PSA offers that, but you can have um, a custom label too. I think it was well when I saw it, it was like $5 or $6 per card or something like that. It wouldn't be graded or anything like that, but you could get stuff slabbed. And then I've seen on the secondary market where people sell their own semi-slabbed, where it's like two pieces or whatever, and then you put your card in it and you like lock it down and it seals it for you.
I mean, in a sense, BCCG is a lot like that, where they're doing a one over basically and just looking at the card. I think now it's the last 30, 40 years. And then, the card doesn't have the deep dive into a grade. It's more like, okay, this looks nice. This will be a 10. The 9 is, I think 10 is mint or better. 9 is near mint or better. And that's fine. That just tells you on a surface level what the condition is, and that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that in terms of, again, just putting a protection on a card. And sometimes we just want to have cards protected. We don't care always about the value of the card. We know, we know that it's not worth on one level getting slabbed, but on another level, if you want to get something slabbed because you want it, that's perfectly fine. I mean, I don't think anybody ever anticipated the grading companies would fall this far behind in grading and have to come up with innovative ways basically to tell people don't send anything more in until we figure out what we got. I mean, that's pretty intense if you think about it.
Not only that, but like check out my cards, right? With the shipping, just so many people are buying cards and then trying to all ship it. It's just been one big tidal wave.
I mean,
Going through the whole
I work
system.
at CompC, so I can't really go into the details, but I will assure you that job number 1, job number 2, and job number 3 right now are to get people their cards. Tim Getz, our CEO and founder, was on Jeremy Lee's show, one of the occasional co-hosts here, and he detailed a lot in sometimes excruciating detail what happened and why CompC fell behind. And basically, it's all hands on deck if you're within basically driving distance of the shipping places. I can't do much in Dallas, Texas, but it's all hands on deck to get the stuff out the door because the collectors want their cards. It is, and I'm going to put this in a political term. Joe Biden has one job right now to get the pandemic under the control and get shots in people's arms. CompC has one job right now: get the collectors the cards they want, that they've done. And believe me, shipping is running 24/7. We're doing everything we can to get you the cards you want.
Rich, I wasn't meaning that whatever would check on my cards.
No, I know, Val, but I wanted to point that out.
No, correct. But I guess what I wanted to show was that maybe you were at the beach and you had the small waves, and then all of a sudden the big wave comes in, and and it's just not PSA, it's not checking my cards. It's Beckett, it's SGC, it's everything. It's top loaders, it's card savers, it's wax, it's just
Sport lots.
everything, right?
So 4 months.
Okay, I want to point out, I went to a card store and I missed the sign, and because it was clear, but I just wasn't paying attention. I'd never seen it. They were limiting customers to 2 packs of these per day per customer.
I can't see. What is it?
Can't see it.
Oh, sorry.
There you go.
Oh, okay. They're limiting that
Penny
now.
sleeves, right?
Yeah, they were limiting card savers, and I said, "Oh, let me just look. I won't come back for a while. Let me buy 5," and they were nice enough to let me do that. But I mean, they were limiting card savers, not just top loaders. You can't get penny sleeves. They're not penny sleeves anymore.
So I guess what I was saying is that we knew we had a increase, but we didn't realize how big of an increase we had, and stresses, cracks in the system that we've been used to because we've had a smaller number of collectors or whatever, between the pandemic and all these other supply chain issues. Everything's stressed.
Well, when stuff is growing at a 10, 15, 20% rate a year, you can plan for the growth. And I've asked Dr. Jim about this on his podcast, and he had a little more luxury. But when I got to Beckett in 1990, I was approximately employee number 50. 3 years later, we were up at the absolute peak, and that includes interns who were getting paid. We were up to 182 people. So that was almost 4x growth, but in a 3-year period. Today's world, you're getting 4x growth in employees at PSA, SGC, all these places. But you're not getting years to do it, you're getting months to do it. And you have learning curves. And I don't care how good you are at your job. I don't care if you learn your job your first day. There's a learning curve in any position you do.
And the thing is that you can't just hire a bunch of jabronis off the street and train them to be card graders in like 3 months or 6 months. You have to have people that have some rudimentary knowledge of the hobby. And a lot of the people that would be qualified.
You're right. The great card grader, no. But I mean, can you find somebody who can ship cards? Yes. Can you find people who can, find the cards, package to get the packages in and identify how many cards came in the shipment in the mail? Yes. So yes, the skill position you can't necessarily find. The non-skill positions you can always find. Because everybody thinks about PSA just as card grading, but think about everything that goes around the card grading. Think about even customer service at PSA. You learn it. If you know customer service, you don't have to know as much about cards, but you can do customer service.
Hey, we have a caller.
Brad Bethune.
Did somebody say jabroni? I thought I'd call if somebody called out jabroni.
Well,
what is that? I don't know.
What does that say about you, Brad?
I know. What's up, gentlemen? What's up, gentlemen? I've been aggravating from the sidelines, so I thought I'd join in the fun-ativities and in the activities. What's up, everybody out there?
So I read in the comments you're going to put your Top Shot on YouTube.
Well, that's what I always thought that would be. They say you own the fungible and you own the rights to that particular one. I've always said the clear cut. If you want to make sure you own it, put it on YouTube and see how long it lasts. And if they pull it down, you don't own it. Let's call a spade a spade. NFTs I'm a fan of, and I think that I think there's a thin line between love and hate, and there's a thin line between tangible and non-tangible. I think Gronk has really hit something out of the park as far as experiences whenever he sold his NFTs. And I guess my question is, do you consider a YouTube experience a fungible?
I missed. I don't understand. I missed that Gronk. What was that?
So what Gronk did is about a month ago, he was probably the first NFL player. He was the first NFL player to do an NFT sale, and he offered throughout his career cards that were non-licensed of himself throughout his entire career. And he offered a one-of-one card. I believe I can't remember what it sold for. It was either, I think it was like 200,000 or something like that, but it added on an experience where it was you and Gronk and a guest on the sidelines at a Tampa Bay football game. So that's a fungible. I mean, that's something you can experience, you can do, you can touch. But what about Zoom calls or Cameo? Cameo's starting to pick up where you have one-on-ones with stars. You're starting to get Marky Mark's group that is starting to do Zoom calls now. I mean, there's other experiences, and do you consider those experiences tangibles? So I just thought it was interesting. Y'all were talking about a non and tangible to a non-tangible, and I was going, well, does the experience or a virtual experience count as a tangible? I don't know.
Well, are people buying these for the experience more, or are they buying it for the NFT?
Well, if you think about it,
are you buying an NFT that comes with an experience, or are you buying an experience that just happens to come with an NFT?
Or NFT that has a chance at a tangible.
Right. I mean, Rex said it. That's within your own heart, but Rex may have had a great comment of, what if you had an NFT that took you to a video of that particular moment? So like Tops Now, instead of you getting the 30-second or 20-second or whatever the NFT moment is, it takes you to a virtual area where you see the entire Tops Now, like batting whatever, or scoring play with your particular number down at the bottom. I don't know. I just think that's different. And yeah, I agree, Chris. It's different and interesting, but we're not of that. We're not. That's what, 25, 30 years, after our time. So we're not of that age demographic that I think NFTs are really designed for. So as core hobbyists or older hobbyists or whatever you want to call ourselves, we're
collectors. That's the term I like to use. Collectors.
Well, what if you wanted to collect a whole complete Topps Series 1 on NFT?
Yeah, and then, well, I thought it was, think about this, is how cool it would be is if you got on an NFT with Topps Series 1, you got the ability to drill down into that particular player. Or let's take the card where you've got Acuna and Vlad fighting or playing. How cool would it be to see that particular sequence if you drilled down onto that card? I mean, it'd be pretty interesting, don't you think?
Well, I was going to say, I wish I could.
Sounds a lot like Upper Deck Power Deck to me, but
that was Upper Deck Power Deck. We talked about that earlier. Wonderful success.
Or Panini HRX.
Yeah, another wonderful success. I mean, someday technology will be ready for all this, but the question is, Brad, you're the technology guy. Actually, you've worked in the technology field. I think Brad does too. But you're the technology guy, and you seem to be reasonably all in on this. So what do you, if I asked you for your odds of success, what would you put the odds of success for Topps on this?
With the type of guys that they've got, smart brain behind it, and the new kids on the block.
They did a set on New Kids on the Block in the 80s, so
probably I'd give it like an 80, 85 off the top. If I were to thumb it right now, I'd say 80 to 85. Because, go ahead, Chris.
This reminds me, the whole NFT thing. It reminds me a lot of internet stocks in the late 90s. I mean, 3-4 months ago, I don't think any of us or most people had no idea what an NFT was. But now it's like the great Oklahoma land rush. Everybody's got to get into NFTs. NFTs. Everybody's making NFTs. And it reminds me of a lot of these .com stocks that were big in the late 90s. Nobody had ever heard of these companies, but they were on the internet, and everybody had to buy, Pets.com stock or Webvan or The Globe, and the media had these stories about these wonder kids that founded this internet company in their basement, and now they're paper billionaires. And then as time wore on, people started to question these companies about, where's their revenue here? What is this? And a lot of these companies, I mean, yeah, there's a Google that did survive and did pretty well. This was also around the time when Steve Jobs came back to Apple and resurrected that company. They did pretty well. Netflix survived. They were founded around the same time. But for every Google and Netflix, there were 20 pets.com and 20 web vans that did it. And that's kind of what I see with NFT. I mean, there may be some brand name NFTs that do survive. Maybe Topps is one of them, maybe not. But with all the NFTs that are coming out over the last really 2 or 3 months, I don't see how any of these are gonna survive long term.
Well, let's think about it from a different aspect of just an EBITDA, or even a let's just talk money grab for a second. I mean, I'm not a fan of going this direction, but I'll go this direction.
I mean, this does seem to be like a money grab on Topps' part.
Think about the numbers that are about to happen on the 20th. I mean, at $100 a pop for the NFTs, you're talking anywhere between $4 to $5 million if the bots get a hold of it within a couple of hours.
Hold on a sec, Rich, turn your microphone off.
I muted him.
Okay, that's what I was just about to do. But if you think about it, Topps is going to make anywhere from $4 to $5 million within 10 minutes, 25 minutes.
For about 2 minutes. Okay.
So that type of influx of money like that, why wouldn't you? I mean, I agree. I look, when you talk about Top Shot, I don't like Top Shot. I don't like their model. There's a lot about Top Shot that I don't like. But when you throw Topps into that, a very reputable, a lot of money banking, a lot of money backing it, a lot of money to be able to throw at the technology, they could fix the problems that Top Shot has or doesn't have, or the model that they don't have. So while I agree, and I've had a couple of my buddies come after me and ask me about the card market and NFTs. So this is not the only, Top Shot is not the only that's about to happen right around the corner. Topps is not the only that's going to happen right around the corner. When NFTs came out, was I on? Hey Jeff, when NFTs came out, was I a fan? No, I was not a fan whatsoever. I was exactly in your place, Chris. I didn't like it. I thought it was a stupid idea. You can't touch it. You can't do anything with it. You can't like. It's not something that me personally I can hold. But when Gronk pulled what he pulled and showed partially what can be done with the moment, or with a non-tangible, or pulling experiences, and then you started thinking about autographs or NFT autographs, and then it opened up a world to something of a different experience with NFT than just a tangible card. I think it does have it at its place in the new card era, but what that looks like, I'm not 100% sure. I do think that Topps has enough money to be able to throw at it to make it a success. I'm very curious to see what happens. So I'll shut up on my rant now.
This seems to me that this is attracting the same kind of demographic that got big into daily fantasy maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. Mm-hmm. Or got into like day trading or online poker about 15, 20 years ago. And in that case, you had some people at the top that were smart that did make a lot of money off of this. I think this week there was a top shot of LeBron James that sold for, what was it, $375,000. But that draws people into this that really don't know what they're doing, that really aren't smart. And they're going to winding up with a bunch of NFTs that nobody wants and wind up losing money. I mean, I read an article this week. In fact, I actually posted it on my Twitter feed at Stale Gum, that 70% of NFTs that have been issued since February are now worth less than what they sold for, are losing money. So I think we're starting to reach a point where, just like in daily fantasy 5 years ago, or just like in poker, you're going to see some people at the top making a lot of money and a lot of suckers that are getting in that are going to lose their shirts.
But
and you can say that about cards too.
With that, yeah, I mean, that's with anything. It's excuse me, you do you, boo. It's hobby your way. It's be cautious. It's don't spend more than you. I mean, you can't fix stupid. You really can't. You can't fix stupid. But what we can do is just educate. In our position is educate and throw out, our thoughts, and you do you. And I Chris, I don't disagree 100% with what you're saying. I really don't. I'm just hoping that it takes what traditionally has been a handheld commodity and turn it into something for the new kids. Because if you think about it, let's go 5 years ago, 7 years ago, wasn't the hobby screaming for new blood? Weren't we screaming for new collectors? Aren't we still today saying, hey, we need more kids into the hobby? But yet what the kids...
Are we screaming for this, though? Is this...
But this is their way. This is what they want. Sorry, go ahead, Val.
No, I was going to say, I think this is them trying. When I was talking about Topps being an innovator, when you were talking, Chris, about stuff, it might be worth something, it might not. The Project 2020, Project 70 stuff. About collecting with some of this NTFS or NFS. That's my NT. I'm sorry.
Too much racing.
NFT. Yeah. They have a burn to earn Topps 52 redo NFTs where collectors can burn or trade in 5 select base cards during a 5-week long event for a chance to receive exclusive 1952 cards of their favorite modern players. So, there is a collectible ability to it, but I don't think it's so early. We won't know if this is, think of some non-sport. I was thinking like Upper Deck did those comic ball cards or did the Space Jam stuff, and not everything is a winner, and they're testing the market. And with Topps, they have the name and they know they have the collector, so this is their dipping their toe into this. And they did do what, Garbage Pail Kids or some other stuff, but
did they also do a Godzilla?
Or
something.
Yeah. I'm okay with all of this from Topps, and it's one of these things where new blood wants new things. Mm-hmm. It may not be what we want,
right?
And I'm old. I'm not young anymore, so I
can I quote you on that later?
I don't listen to new music very much. I listen basically to older music. And if you're doing cards, you basically want what you knew. Well, for a new blood may want totally new things. Mm-hmm. Whether NFTs stand whatever test of time it is, we will find out. However, if it's something that brings new people in. As I say, Topps now has did all these things about the 2020 political campaign. Some of those cards sold a lot of cards to the general public that may not necessarily buy cards. They, everybody does something. Panini blockchain, Upper Deck EPAC. Everybody does something trying to get new people in, because if you don't get new people in, your hobby eventually goes away. So you have to keep generating income, and you keep having to have the new things. And I mean, I don't talk about this very often, but Society of American Baseball Research, SABR, has had major adjustments over the past few years, where it began as people going through dusty microfilms and libraries researching arcane things, which were fascinating but had a limited thing. Now there's a whole group in SABR about, they call it the launch angle, and the OPS and the whole SABR revolution. Now, anybody who's trying to run SABR has the really delicate issue of balancing the old school, the people who sat in the libraries or bought a microfiche machine for their house or something like that, and the new generation that's interested in the angles of how the game are played. And I feel sorry for anybody having to try to balance that, because it's not the easiest job in the world. And what we're talking about is we are not the NFT consumers, maybe with the exception of Brad. We're not the NFT consumers. It would be good to have somebody who would be an NFT consumer let us know, hey, why am I interested in this? And I'm not necessarily saying for profit. Why would you want to have an NFT? And having somebody tell you why would be, I think, the best thing in the world.
Yeah, the great Brody's going to be on next week with me and Dr. Beckett. So I'm actually going to bring that up with Brody and let Brody talk a little bit about it, because he is the perfect demographic for it. He is somebody that can speak to that. So there's my teaser for next week. Woohoo!
Yeah. Well, think about this. You don't have to worry about Card Monday and how backed up they are.
Mm-hmm.
And waiting to get this scheduled and get it packed, get it shipped, get it to distributors, when the distributor's waiting in line at Target or Walmart or whatever. It's just going to drop.
They can speak to that. Yep. So there's my teaser for next week. Woo!
Somebody's on the delay.
Put me back on.
You back on?
I'm mute, I'm assuming.
No, who put him on mute?
I unmuted him.
But Chris, I agree. I agree with some of your train of thought. 100%. I just think that the younger generation is asking for something a little different, and the hobby is still trying to figure that out. And right now, Top Shot, for its limitations, are success. So they're trying to say, okay, well, this worked. Unfortunately, like our hobby does, it beats it into a dead horse, or it beats it like a dead horse. I mean, that's what's going to happen right now until that dies. And I think Top Shot has good points. I think it has horrible points, but it's not. I'm not the typical consumer for it, so I don't know. And a lot of people are going to. I agree. A lot of people are going to get held holding the bag at the end of the merry-go-round, and there's going to be a lot of money loss. Yeah, that could be it. That could be the same being said for physical cards, where someone's buying the PSA 10 Jordan right now at what, $4 million, and all of a sudden 3 weeks later it turns into $700,000. I mean, it doesn't matter about physical or virtual cards. It's going to happen. It's how do we, as I don't know what to call us as enthusiasts, how do we educate to say, you do. I'm gonna do it again. You do you, boo, or you hobby your way, and be cautious. I guess is the best thing to say. So,
Rich, you good?
I'm good. It's been
A little
I went to
out of
Facebook.
focus.
Sorry about that. I went to Facebook for a minute and said hi to Logan and didn't realize I was double streaming.
No, it's fine.
What's up, Nathan?
Yeah,
What's
well,
up,
Brett,
Matt?
you were saying that, like, what if you just bought the Tiger Woods a few months ago, a PSA 10, when it was going for hundreds at 2001. Now that flooded, how many are at PSA right now as well? So you just never know. And maybe NFTs become more popular than physical. Nobody wants physicals anymore. So we never know. I guess in 15, 20 years, we'll find out what survives.
So Drew makes a great comment here, and I pulled it up. This has been a discussion for the past, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. There's going to be a correction. There's going to be a correction, but I don't think the bubble's going to burst. I think there's too much, and I'm going to follow Brian Gray's train of thought here for a second. And I know this is not a popular train of thought, but I don't think that there's going to be a burst of the bubble. I think I agree with Dr. Beckett, with Rich, with everybody who says there's going to be a correction. What the correction looks like, Logan. Sorry, I got to do this. I got to do this. But I can't. I don't think it's going to burst. I don't think we're going to see the drop. And I know, Chris, this is completely opposite of yours. So I want you to comment just as soon as I get done with this. I don't think there's going to be a burst. I listened to your and Dr. Beckett's podcast of this conversation. I think there's going to be a correction. I think there's going to be a drop in prices. You can see it. You can see it slightly happening right now. You can see the market slowing, and I'm just going to say slowing a tad. And some of it has to do with what I think is happening on the back end. But I don't think there's going to be a bubble burst. And I'll give you a big reason why. 600 vendors in Dallas. I think there's supposed to be 450 to 500 vendors. And Rich, I don't know how many Kyle's going to have next month.
It's actually less than the previous show because he doesn't have the extra room he had at the last show.
Okay,
so it actually goes back to about 500.
About 500. There's too much. There's too many of that going on right now, and shows just keep popping up, and like that. The hobby is forcing the activity. So, do I see a correction? Yes. Do I see it somewhat of a slowdown? Yes. But I also see other positive signs in the industry of it still increasing. So I'll be quiet. Go ahead, Chris. You're itching.
So I'm trying to. You threw out so many things there. What did you want me to respond to?
The bubble bursting in and of itself.
Well, I think a lot of the reason why the hobby boomed over the last year is really things that, like the COVID, like COVID. We were all stuck at home and we were all bored. And there's no sports on TV, but there are these people on YouTube that are opening up packs of cards. That's live sports. Why don't I get into that? People kind of rediscovering that. And a lot of this boom in the hobby was really stimulated by government checks. I mean, we all got these $1,200, $600, $1,400 checks, and most of us really didn't need that money. So we spent it on things like baseball cards. Eventually, both of those things are going to go away. So, and I think too, with a lot of what we've seen over the last year or so, there have been a lot of really, really bad products that have been released over the last year, or
what about
products that
pricing?
really don't serve much of a purpose. Things like, I don't know, top sapphire chrome, every product being sapphire chromed, every product having chrome, you know. Did we really need to have a Ginter chrome or a Stadium Club chrome? Do we really have to have Bowman Draft First Edition? Um, and that, I mean, there's we're starting to see what we saw 30 years ago in the terms of production levels. Topps is making more and more cards, just like they did back then. So,
well, Chris, just remember,
I hope that answers your question.
Chris, just remember, anytime you see Bowman Draft First Edition, at least traditionally, that does not count against the number of brands Topps makes in a year, because it's actually a parallel set to something already created. So whenever you see 582 Montgomery Club top set, that's not considered a new product. That's actually just considered a parallel.
Yeah, it is. It's a new product.
It's not. Not according to the contracts with the licensors.
I'm not talking about the contracts with the licensors.
Yeah, but that's how they make
more products. Topps released more products in 2020 than they did in 2019.
I'm sure of it. But my point is, though, that when we talk about Bowman Draft First Edition or Topps 582 Montgomery Club complete set or anything like that, the reason they're making them is they don't count against their limits with the contract, with the licensors. That's all I'm saying.
Hold that point. Because do they even have limits anymore? Because I'm under the impression that when they got their exclusive license 10 years ago, they were limited to, I think, like 18 to 20 products, right? Rich?
The question is, how, one of the things I wonder, because I've never seen the contract, but whether the direct-to-consumer sets they come up with, whether Topps Now, whether all that stuff is even covered in the contract, or whether that's considered a different contract. And so, as such, nobody wants to turn down money. But think about what Panini, think about Panini when there's draft day. There'll be Panini instant cards with the people who were drafted in 2 weeks, 1 week. There'll be cards of those people. Again, the leagues have whatever contract it is, but when you talk about sets that are parallels, they don't count against any limits. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you're assuming that there are limits now. We don't know that. And one of the things that now that Topps is going public again is that as part of their SEC filings, when they were a public company 15 years ago, they used to do this, is that they used to actually publish their contracts with the leagues, their licensing agreements. They were all there in their 10K filing. So hopefully, beginning next year or whenever Topps goes public again, we may be able to get that information about what restrictions they have, if any, as far as their baseball license goes.
Right. Well, they also have. I know they're doing hockey stickers. I think they're doing some other stuff too. So hopefully we'll see all those contracts. But my thing is just that the other reason they do the parallel sets is not just about it doesn't count against the license, but one of the most expensive costs of doing cards is the cost of photography. You pay for every, you do have to pay a photo. You do have to pay for every photo used on the card. And if you do a parallel set, you only pay for the photo once. If you do Bowman Draft First Edition, you've only paid for the photo once. You don't have to pay for it again. And when you're doing sets of 300-400 cards, if you're paying $100 for each photo you use, that adds up too, and that's quite a savings there.
So does that
and
mean
you also don't have to design anything again?
Correct.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's laziness.
It's just like the movies
Yeah.
with the
Keep
remakes.
making the same product. Just put something different on it.
Well, what about Panini first off the line? Does Panini first off the line count the same as Bowman?
Yeah,
The
Panini
Bowman
first off the line. As long as it's parallel of the base set, it's the exact same principle.
Okay, I thought so, but I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah, if you're using the same design and the same photos, it's just a parallel set.
Okay.
I'm just amazed you guys have that many products. We got 4 in NASCAR, so.
By the way, what's going on with? By the way, congratulations, Val. I see Panini Racing has joined the world of exploding prices.
Well, I guess you would say
It's
it
about
doubled.
time.
Yeah, the Donruss went from about low 70s to 175, 174.
Yeah, that's 2.5 times. That's pretty impressive. I know for years it never really moved, and this year now it finally joined everybody else. So
yeah, I think
for racing finally joining the 21st century.
But the 2020 Donruss is probably one of the best Donruss products I've ever seen. They have the 5-year anniversary buybacks, which was kind of a secret until they came out. So, but yeah, so it just amazes me when I see these prices dropping, or say dropping because they're going up. But I mean, when the product drops, but the prices are coming out so high, is that one of those deterrents from people, collecting the new stuff? It seemed like people were into the gambling. Chris, what you were saying is they had money, they were able to buy a box, gamble, maybe get the Zion or whatever, then send it to PSA and get the 10. And now, it's that trying to flip all that. And now with the boxes so high, PSA and the grading cards all backed up, my concern is that people are going to leave, or they're going to maybe go after some of the older stuff as opposed to the new football, the new basketball, whatever. So all I saw was like at the show I went to a few weeks ago, Prism was like $140, I guess a blaster. So I just was amazed at, Donruss blasters are about $25, I guess. So even though the hobby boxes have shot up, the blasters are still very affordable.
I'm one of the reasons I went off briefly is I just sold some of my literally while we were on the air, I sold some of my cheaper graded cards. It's a nice kid. He actually packed me out from the last show because I was still recovering from shot number 1. And, he's a good kid. And I gave him a really good price. And he was telling me why he did it. I said, well, that's a really innovative reason. But as I'm thinking about it, as I'm selling him the cards, and I'm perfectly fine with what I did, and this goes back to our second topic, I sold a lot of those cards at the last show that were cheaper graded cards for the simple reason when graded is $100 a card, and you have a graded card that's $20, it's like, okay, fine. I don't have to now worry about paying $100 to send this card in, or $50.
Yep.
I can get the card at $20.
And Mr. Newman and I were talking about that 3 nights ago. That's one of the things that I'm thinking about. How do you do it differently now because of the flood with PSA and the flood, and everybody's like, okay, well, no more new graded cards. Well, we don't need any more new graded cards because there's a 10 to 20 million card backup in the grading system right now. And when those all come back, what happens to prices? And all of those are going to be new graded cards. So what is that going to do to the price of do we have an increase? And then all of that, because, let's talk supply and demand, then the supply becomes X. What happens? Prices dip, and then there's your correction or bubble or whatever you want to call. So I 100% agree with this market going to current graded cards and moving into the 80s cards. And somebody, I can't remember who it was, made I think it was Drew. Here it is, where it specifically said Our kids are now listening to us talk about Brett, Mattingly, McGuire, etc. The cost of modern product is skyrocketed so high, and junk era being so affordable. I believe this is why junk era has started to climb. And then they're going after that. So what are we doing? I'm looking at Mays and Mantle and the guys that my father. I just went saw my father like 3 days ago. We were talking about Mays and Mantle and Johnny Unitas, and we were. I said, Dad, where's your old cards? I mean, we were talking about. So now I'm thinking about going after those cards and not the super high expensive PSA 10s, but I might want a Mantle card. I might want to any and who cares about the creases and who cares about the condition and who cares? I might want a Mantle card. I might want a Mays card. I might want a Unitas card. So it's adjusting and finding and going into a different type of direction with the ebbs and flows. So another reason why I think the hobby is just going to change. It's not going to bust. So I've got a call I got to get on. I'm getting off. I appreciate everybody. Y'all have a fantastic day. It was good to see you, Chris.
Well, Brad, thanks for covering for me while I had all these little things that interrupted. So good job.
Thank you. I can't wait to aggravate you. And Val, I can't wait to see you, brother.
Well, we'll see you soon. Don't forget you have a trip to my house coming up there, Brad.
I'm going to give you a big old wet sloppy kiss in a couple of weeks.
Don't you dare. I don't think my wife would be very happy with you.
Before you go, Brad, so Brad's on next week with Dr. Beckett and Brody the kid, so you don't want to miss that, everybody.
Come aggravate Brody as much as I love to. So
I want to see what Brody has to say about the NFTs. So, all right, see you, Brad.
I'm going to prep him beforehand. Bye, guys.
Bye. Let's see what else. I saw Logan in the chat. I'll give a shout out to Logan. He won in the PSA set registry for best set 1980 Max. I think it was Master Collection for 1988 Max. So they're still, I guess, doing it. He got a nice little plaque, glass.
Hey, we're about quarter after the hour. Do we have anything else other than final words we want to do?
No, we talked about like who's on next week, and Chris, anything for you?
I do want to mention one thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think as a lot of people know, I'm a big soccer guy, and this is opening weekend for Major League Soccer. I've been a day one season ticket holder to the Philadelphia Union, the defending Supporter Shield champion. And the checklist for 2021 Topps MLS came out this week. You would never know, judging by the checklist, that the Union won a trophy last year because there's only 4 base cards for the Union in the entire 200-card set. 4. And one of them is a team logo card.
So how many teams are in the league?
27.
Okay. And is that the league that Charlotte is getting a team at?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I don't think they're playing yet, right?
No.
Okay.
So now, based on quick math, you should have 6 to 7 cards per team. So, I mean,
and most other teams have at least 6 to 7 cards.
Is that because
we did sell our 2 best players to Europe, but we had 3 players on the MLS Best 11 last year, which is like MLS's version of the All-NBA team. Two of those 3 we sold off to Europe, so I get it. You can't put them in the set. But the third guy is Andre Blake, who is the goalkeeper. He won Best Goalkeeper in the league last year and Best 11. Guess who's not in the base set? Andre Blake. I'm like, ever since the MLS license went to Topps, I've just been.
They're going to maybe do it on the Topps Now stuff?
It's just disappointing. I mean, I want to say that they just half-ass it, but they don't even do that. It's more like quarter-assing it. So that's all I got to rant about this week. They can at least make it bigger than 200 base cards.
Do they have an
That
update
sounds like
set?
that sounds like a big set for. I don't remember the base set being 200 cards back in the day.
A lot of the upper deck sets were 200 cards, but there were only like a dozen or so teams. Now there's twice as many teams.
Chris, can I ask a logical question? Would collectors want? So we'll call it. You have 11 players playing at soccer at a time. You have 27 teams. You have some special cards. Would collectors actually want a 350 card set? And would you just be throwing up your hands because 300 of them are commons you've really never heard of?
But they're starters in the league.
But just being a starter doesn't necessarily mean anybody's going to really collect you or have interest in you. I mean, it's the same thing in baseball. You can
they make baseball cards. They make baseball cards of all kinds of guys.
That's the definition of a flagship set, right? The Topps flagship is 700 cards. And no, not all of them are stars. Yes, you do get the card of the middle inning reliever and the backup catcher. But that's what some people want those players. That's their only card that they usually get each year. And so for an MLS product, yes, some people want the left back.
Chris,
some people want that guy off that comes off.
This way, Chris could trade somebody in Las Vegas for their team. I don't even know if Vegas has a team, but for his team.
Chris, would we better off with the Topps total? Like, I mean, not like how they brought it back in baseball, but like the original concept of Topps total, where you actually get and counting the subs, we'll call it a 400 player set for a Topps total set and a 200 card set where you might miss a player or two in the base set. I mean, would that
350 to 400 cards should be, for a 27 team league, right? That's roughly about the size of what? The NBA? There are 30.
Yeah, it's a little less than the NBA. I'm counting subs. What each team have 3 or 4 subs?
Yeah.
So I made
15 players per team.
Head coaches. So we'll make it 28 times 15 is 420. And so 27 times 15 is 405. You could make a 400 card set.
Yeah.
You would do a Topps total like set. Basically get everybody but the kitchen sink in. And then you might miss somebody in the 200 card set, but you'd be guaranteed in the Topps total set that you would get everybody.
But I don't want this to be a Topps total set. I want this to be the Topps flagship set.
Out of curiosity, is there any licensing issue with the goalie that's missing?
No, because he's in the inserts.
Okay, so they just missed it. It happens. It happens. I mean,
and it's not just any old jabroni that they missed. They missed the guy who won the best goalkeeper in the league.
They're saving him for the update set.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, seriously, back in the mid '90s, we did cards that never were, and then we called Donruss when they realized, hey, there was no George Brett in 1993 Donruss. It was like we missed it. We thought he was going to retire for Series 1 and Series 2. He came back, and it was like, oh, well, we just missed it. So it happens. I mean, I'm not trying. It's not a conspiracy. It's a miss. Misses happen. I'm not trying to make light of it. I know you're frustrated about that, but misses happen. Yes, you should have certain names of certain people you don't miss. I get that, but Topps is for 60 years. In 1962, for crying out loud, Roy McMillan has the 62 Topps All-Star shortstop card for the National League. I think he's on a Braves Midway Defenders card with Frank Bowling. You know what Topps didn't put into their 62 set? A Roy McMillan base card. And that was a 500. I mean, it happens.
No.
I mean, it's happening.
We're not talking about a Roy McMillan. We're talking about, again,
Roy McMillan,
the best goalie.
The best goalkeeper in the league last year.
Roy McMillan won the first ever Gold Glove from shortstops over some really good competition. He was not a bum either. My point is, but he was a player in those days. He was a well-known player. He was, as I said, they put him in the All-Star subset. It wasn't like that he was a bum. It wasn't like he was Amado Samuel. You miss Amado Samuel, it's not a big deal in 62. You miss Roy McMillan, you missed one. But my point is, let's not conspiracy theory on this one. Let's just say they missed it and move on.
Well, they need to expand that set.
Well,
yes.
Yeah.
Maybe 250 cards so they don't miss your goalie again.
They need like a season highlights
I just want them to give the license back to Upper Deck. They knew what they were doing. So anyway.
Upper Deck appreciate your comment.
All right. Enough talk about soccer.
Sorry, Chris.
Are we done for this?
Yes.
Are we done for the week?
We're wrapping up. Yeah.
It's a good time to end the
Yep.
All
right, here we go. Bye, everybody.
See you next week.
See you next week.